Evening. My name is Karen Keegan. I'm from the Delaware Department of Education in the Higher Education Office. And I wanted to welcome our students and parents and any school counselors or educators who are on the webinar with us to talk about choosing a career area. I think we're in for a really interesting topic. If we could go to the next slide. On the call also with us, besides Dr. Solberg, who's going to do the presentation, we have some of our colleagues from the University of Delaware Institute for Public Administration, and they will be helping with the chat. So if you have questions tonight, please put your questions in the chat and we will have time to answer them. Also, this session is being recorded and you'll be able to see it later. Also, everyone is muted and your videos are not on, just so that you know that. We wanted to share some really exciting news. You're the first group actually to even hear about this. We're launching, sorry, my screen just went away. We're launching a texting program, Delaware Student Success, which is run by the Department of Education. For high school students and parents. So you will be able to sign up if you would like with the number on your screen, 302-492-2092. And we will send you reminders about these upcoming webinars, which I'm going to talk about in a second. You can ask us questions about your plans for after high school or next steps to take. We will provide you with updates and information on things that you could be doing along the way to help you reach your goals. Can you move to the next slide? So this is the very first webinar that we're having tonight, and we have 17 in total. And I just want to call your attention to the ones that are coming up next week. Next week, we'll have one on college admissions and talk about what is involved in applying to college. We'll have representatives from the University of Delaware, Delaware State University, and Boston College. And then 2 days of presentations by in-state colleges, one by Delaware Tech Community College and one by the University of Delaware. They'll talk about their admissions, their programs, their majors, all kinds of information, and you will be able to ask questions too. And then the following week, we have more on some college topics, but coming up later will be other topics around military. We have probably about 6 different branches presenting career and educational opportunities. We'll have a session on apprenticeships. We'll have a session on what kind of careers can you get with industry certifications. We'll talk about resumes and interviews and cover letters. So lots of information that you're welcome to join, and everything will be on delawarestudentsuccess.org. That's got the calendar. Also, one other thing to mention is on that calendar, we have financial aid and FAFSA sessions very frequently, several times a week, and any student or parent is welcome to sign up and participate in those, get help, get information. They're run by Stand By Me, who is one of our partners statewide. So please take advantage of these opportunities to help figure out and take the next steps on what you might be thinking about doing after you graduate from high school. And also for these webinars, you need to register in advance, and all the information is on the website. So thank you for that. And now I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Solberg, who is from Boston University, and he's going to share some really great information about how to match your interests, your strengths, your talents with possible career areas. Dr. Solberg, you're on mute.
Sorry about that. Welcome, everyone. I wanted to let everyone know that we want this to be interactive and make it a conversation. So if you could start throwing some things into the chat, for example, identify, are you a student? And if you are, what grade level, a parent, school counselor, just so we have a sense of that. And then if you want to give us some ideas of things you're hoping to learn today would be fabulous. So my background, professor in my specialty is around career development and helping to think about how to design strategies for you all to find the different pathways through life. And that's kind of what we're going to talk about. So this idea, for example, of being future ready is really kind of where we're moving towards. If you think about the fact that you're going to be living until you're 90, 100 years old, we need to start thinking long-term and really thinking through how we're going to navigate through multiple opportunities throughout our lives. So first big thing we want to hit on as we're kind of thinking through this is what's the talent that you're coming in with? And really important that you start thinking about yourself as building your talent, thinking about the kinds of skills, both interest and skills, both interest skills, and are these technology related or the human? And we're going to kind of go through those. But basically this fourth industrial revolution is really wanting you to be able to get along with people, communicate with different people, communicate in a way that shows, and we'll show in a second, the empathy becomes big. Are you able to use technology? We'd love to see some computer skills, any kind of coding skills, but then also imagination and creativity. So the fourth industrial revolution is looking for those qualities that make you different than a robot. If they can do it through a robot, if they can do it on a computer and they don't need people, then the jobs are going to go away. So what are those critical elements that you have that make you better than a particular computer and makes and affects the skill sets that make you viable? And this is a piece from Burning Glass Technologies. This is about looking at at the labor market, and these are the key skills. I mean, if you were to do anything as you start putting your resume together and you start putting your stuff for college applications together, what are the skills you have in these different areas, right? Do you have a positive disposition? Do you get along well with people? When it's time to do a group project, are you kind of whining and moaning? Or are you one who says, let's get this done and let's work together? Are you detail oriented? We need some details, right? But we also need persuasion. We need people who can put together a great story and a great set of graphics and be able to communicate that effectively. The whole project management, this is hard stuff. How do we go from the beginning to the end? And are you playing a powerful role in making all this happen? So these basic skills is a way of also thinking about your talent. And there might be some elements in here that help you see that you are so much more than whatever your grade point average is. You are so much more than what you did in math or what you did in English language arts. You have a broad range of skills today that are really critical for the world of work. That's kind of what we want to hit on. Questions or thoughts on that? I'm starting to look. You want to know about majors that fit the strength. So when you're talking about majors, we're talking about post-secondary majors. Am I right on that? I'm talking to Reagan now. So you're talking about the next steps, yeah. And how do we navigate this? We're going to do a little bit of that. We're going to talk. We're also going to talk about many of you need to go to college, but you're not quite sure what that means. And so we're going to talk about kind of different on-ramps and different ways of building your capacity to be able to get jobs that are going to pay well, provide direction, and hopefully decrease your future debt, because that's a big issue right now. People going to college without a plan and coming away with a lot of debt, but not necessarily a degree. So we want to really be strategic. But one of the first sets of skills that you need are deeper human skills. In school, you've been hearing about social emotional learning, I assume. Maybe not as much at the high school level, but certainly at elementary it was big. It's also big in middle and high school too. And these social emotional learning skills, connecting with people, collaborative work, working in inclusive environments with people who are different, maybe different languages, different skill sets. All of these elements of these deeper human skills, and I'll show you more about what those are in a minute. These are the advanced social emotional learning skills that are needed. And this is very clear that we need a big set of important skills. Empathy and compassion leads the list, right? Your ability to connect with others, really understand and feel for them. Because if you're in a work setting, and especially when you get to college and you're about to see all of these different people that you're going to be meeting with, can you make those connections? Really important. Complex communication is important. So it's the ability to understand nonverbal cues, understand cultural differences in communication. And understanding how that works becomes really important. These are the building blocks. These are the things that are going to help not only make you employable, but in the positions you're going to get very successful. They're also the skill sets that will make you successful within the post-secondary, whichever 2-year, 4-year program you're looking at, or if you're looking at the military. All of these skills are important. One I want to point out is this idea of critical consciousness. This is really important. We talk about it as self-awareness, but it's really more than self-awareness. It's awareness of how contextual factors, how racism, how your own identity and your family upbringing and your own sets of privileges, how those intersect in terms of forming your identity, your opportunities, but also challenges. And we need to be aware of that. And we need to be working with people who are also aware of that. So it's not just about us, it's about the community we live in and building a stronger education community, social community. As we talk about social capital, that's really about those relationships you'll be building, the post-secondary pathways. Think about the relationships you're building. It's important as we go along. And then that's what I move on is personal brand. And that's that idea of what makes you unique. If I'm to hire you, if I'm a college admission saying, what are you going to bring to this particular community? What are those qualities you have? And that's again where that talent, that understanding yourself and thinking about that becomes really important as you start to chart through. Any chatting questions, anything that's coming up, please put them down as you're thinking through these things. At the end of the day, this fourth industrial revolution is all about teamwork. You will be, just like you've been doing in high school, you work in teams. And in that team, you have specialized skills. There's a reason you're on that team. We don't need two of you, we need one of you, right? Each team is one person who can do what sets of roles. You also need team players that can play as a team. So the ability to give and receive feedback becomes really critical. These are the human skills. The ability to collaborate means I've got to listen well, I've got to take feedback, and I've got to think about our performance as a team. And I also have to be proactive, because if I have certain skills that I'm bringing to the table, I got to make those skills as strong as possible. So if a new program, if there's a new strategy, I have to be on it in order to make sure that I'm bringing the best to my team. And that brings us to the idea then of these advanced technology skills. So project management, working with the technologies that are going on, being creative in these different pieces are so important. And some of the ones that we're looking at, of course, the computer skills, the, I'm gonna pause just here, okay. You also have the social media, being able to manage social media, being able to connect with those things become really important. Graphic design, project management, which is what this one is down on the bottom, being able to multitask and have multiple projects. And also learning some of the technologies around computer science. You know, what are some of the things that might be helpful as you start thinking through this? The more technology skills you develop, the more marketable you will be in the future. Doesn't mean you're becoming a computer scientist. What it means is you know how to think and how to construct and how to use these skills in the future of your work. It's really important to think about what kinds of technology skills will help you as you go down. The last one we have here, and I love this picture, and I want to hear in your chat box if you like it too. It might give you a little anxiety, right? Because this is like the career path, and it looks a little scary, right? There's no direction, there's no clear pathway, and you see in kind of this little to the right there, down a ways away, 4 people standing on a mountain looking out and like, where do we go? And so for me, I love this as a metaphor for the type of career management we need. How are we going to navigate this very open set of opportunities, some for which we need specialized talent, some for which we can get started right away, but how are we going to move through this whole process? It's not clear. And so I'm going to show you this little slide here, and I want you to look at, if it looks too busy in the middle, look at the top. The top says building your on-ramps, okay? The on-ramps, that's the first important thought to becoming future ready. And then at the bottom, just focus down there, this idea that we have credentials. Has anyone gotten a credential while they were in high school? Has anyone gone to the 2-year college and gotten something, dietitian aide or computer technologist? Anyone gotten any of these? Put it down, and I want to hear from you. Put it down in your chat box. I'd love to hear what you've gotten, because we can get these anytime, especially you can start now during your senior year if you want. What credentials give you are skills, marketable skills, and skills that translate into dollars, but it also gives you work-based learning opportunities to help you really think and learn about that particular industry or set of occupations. It's great to be able to graduate from high school feeling confident, feeling a sense of skills, and feeling now able and ready to take on your next adventure. So you talk to your school counselors about this, but the stack stackable credentials and things are really exciting and lead to really good things. I know many of you may be looking at the 4-year degree, and that's what we call college. We call it post-secondary because we think the 2-year has amazing viable things. In fact, we're going to show some of that. If you're not sure where you're going in the 4-year degree, unfortunately, 2/3 of the people on our call today not make it. That's what our data says, right? Only about 1 out of every 3 make it through the 4-year degree. 1 out of every 3. That's really scary. That 2/3 are not finished, but they often have a huge impact. So, and especially if your parents are on the line, child doesn't know what they want to do yet. They may be quite skilled, but so we want to encourage these ideas. Some of you have already thought about the military, which is awesome, the number of skills you're going to get. Or, you know, as you get started, and then the on-ramp from credentials into a 2-year degree program, and that becomes an on-ramp into a 4-year degree is a nice way of thinking as well. And it's okay. You say, you know what, I really want to try it. I want to go to that 4-year degree. I'm excited. I've been working hard. I've got the GPA. I've got all this stuff. I get in, great. And you get there and you're not feeling it, right? You're going, what's going on here? Think about stepping back to the 2-year degree. There's no linear pathway. It doesn't have to be going one way forward. You can certainly go back. A lot of people with 4-year degrees are going back to get their credentials. Okay, so they're realizing I need more technical skills. They're stepping back and just focusing on a credential. So this isn't about you're graduating from high school and now your job is to do the next step or go there. There's multiple pathways that we need to figure out, and that's why there's no open strategy for that. So let me pause. Any reactions? Is this helpful? And so put in the chat box, what did you like about this first part? What resonated for you? What kind of made sense, or what kind of got you thinking out of what we've just said? And while you're doing that, as you get ready to do that or continue to do that, I want you to open up a second window, because we're going to go play, and we're going to go to OwnNet, and we're going to do some playing. And I've got a very specialized thing I want you to do, so you can start looking at how your talent can apply to a wide range of opportunities. And don't let me forget to get to that college major, because we'll connect with that as well. So the path isn't linear. Absolutely, it's not. You know, Reagan, and I hope it's Reagan, I may be mispronouncing, I apologize if I am. Amazing amount of opportunities you have for that you could ever know. And it would be great to think of those opportunities in terms of what's right there in Delaware. There are so many great jobs coming up in Delaware. Let's learn what those are. Let's find out what's happening, and then see if we can align the post-secondary opportunities to help you support. And as your first step, you're here for 100 years. You're not going to start and be in the same job for 100 years. I'm sorry, it's not going to happen. In fact, you're going to have 20 to 30 occupations within the first 10 years. So let's learn how to learn through this process. And then naming those specific skills. Yeah, and when you get a chance to look at these slides, definitely follow up with some of those resources, because I think it'll help you in designing your resume and everything else. Team building is huge. Teaming, and when you get to college, the 2-year, 4-year, whatever the program is, you're going to be working in teams, and you want to find teams to do that with. So that's great. Okay, so let's OwnNet. I thought that was fancy. I don't know. That was just me. You're going to open up a new window. You're going to go on .org. I'm going to walk you through. So we're going to slow down. We're going to walk through steps. You're going to get that and say, you lost me, or can you tell me this or things? So it's going to be a conversation. And we're just going to kind of continue walking through this process, okay? So what we're going to do with OwnNet is we're going to think about skills, okay? I've done this, parents. If you've got a parent on the line, we can use their job if you'd like. If you've had a recent job, we'll throw that job in just to show you some things. And I have an example of a job that a lot of people got pushed out because of COVID, and it had to do with those working in restaurants, right? And for many of you, as you start to think about work, you know, you got to pay for your college, or you've got to get out. You know that for many of you, you can start in a restaurant and you can get started. I just want to show you how the skills that you have within that restaurant can translate into a huge range of occupational opportunities that will take a little more education, sometimes a little and sometimes a lot, but just to show you that when you look at opportunities, work-based learning and jobs, this is about you building your own resume of talent. And you should be looking for opportunities that add to your talent, not talent you know how to do, new talent. What is this new opportunity going to provide me? Could be volunteer, it could be paid, it could be many different things, okay? So here's OwnNet. If you're there, I'm hoping you're there. This is really cool. Oh, my connection is choppy. I apologize. So we're asking you to open another window to come to this ONET. It's onetonline.org. I'll tell you, yep, there it is. Thank you, Tilly. onetonline.org. And I will try to talk more slowly. I do get a little excited. It's a really fun thing to talk about. So I'll try to slow down. Apologize if things are going on there. So let's keep going on that. So you're gonna open a new window, come to ONET Online, okay? And then what you're gonna do, what I'm gonna show you, but what I want you to do is to put something in here in this little section that basically is keyword, okay? I'm using server because I want to show you, just something that you could be doing as you're transitioning into life. Many of you may be working in restaurants and such, and that's been a big conversation, of course, during COVID. So I just want to show that as a demonstration, but you can put in you want anything you've got, okay? And when you do that, what you find in ONET is all of these occupations show up, right? These are related occupations. And this is kind of fun because you start to see there's a whole lot. You immediately start to realize, oh my gosh, there's a whole lot of opportunities going on. And if you were to click on what do I click on here? We got waiters and waitresses. They haven't gotten their language figured out yet, but waiters and waitresses. You're going to get a big page with a lot of information. Huge amount. And I'm making it simple for us to look at, okay? Because I'm wanting to help you frame the search process, right? And what we're gonna start with is skills, right? So when you put in something that you're interested in, you're going to then put the skills in, or we're gonna look for the skills. And when you click on skills, you'll see something. So make sure we have everyone together here. I'm just gonna go back and show what we did. We were in ONET. We typed in some kind of occupation. If you want to follow directly along with me, certainly put in server. When server was clicked on, all of a sudden we're looking at this list, and certainly there's waiters and waitresses, and I clicked on that. And after I clicked on that, I get this big, huge monster set of information, and there's a lot underneath, but it's searchable at the top here, pretty interactive, and I'm asking you to kind of look at skills, okay? And when you do, you find out that if you are in the server industry, you've got 5 really important skills, right? Active listening. You got to be able to connect with people. You got to be able to understand what they're saying. You've got to think about the dynamics and support them. If they're frustrated, you're there to help support and we kind of de-escalate situations. You have a service, you like helping people. You like working with people. That's a good thing. Speaking, you've got to be able to be, elegant, quick. You're going to have different times where you're going to have to change the language a little bit to meet the particular individual. So that deeper human and complex communication, that social perceptiveness. So sometimes you have to be aware that things are happening. Maybe there's some tensions and you got to be able to respond appropriately when those things happen. And you've got to adjust. Boy, when you're a server, there's times when it's really busy and hard and you've got to change the coordination. So the organization and the particular time you're working, you guys can function together as a team. These are 5 really powerful skills. And what I'm going to show you right now is how those skills transfer into a wider range of occupational opportunities. And what and the reason why we're using the word talent is I want you to think of your skills as transferable skills. How do these transfer and expand opportunities in the future? How are we doing? Okay. So just type, right? You have to just put in the chat box, I'm doing great. So we know things are going well. Oh, I'm pausing here. I'm waiting for great. Doing good. I got good. Okay, Lindsay, come on. Ah, boy, I'm getting slammed. Okay, thank you. I got a couple fabulous. Thank you. I'm not even going to know how to pronounce your first name, but I love it. It looks awesome. All right, Jazz. Good. We got some greats. See, I gotta pull it out of you sometimes. All right. Oop. So now what you're going to do is you're going to go to this thing called advanced search. So go back to the front of this thing. You might have to backtrack a little bit. Oh, and that's a little clunky in this way. But get back to this front onetonline.org. You're going to see and we're in the advanced search. We're not even going to play around. We're going right to the advanced search. And what I want you to do there is I want you to click on it and go down to this thing called skill search. Not this first skills one, down to the bottom for skills search. This is the most awesome thing you will ever know in your life. And you're going to say, why didn't we do this in my freshman year in high school? And ask your school counselor and tell them this, because that is what we want them to do, okay? And parents, never too late. I'm hoping you're watching and you're going to do this as well, because this is so cool to see the job you're in and ways in which it can transfer. So we click on here, and now you just click, right? You're just clicking. Let's go to this box called active listening, or active listening, and you click on it, because if you're on the server track that we were talking about, right? Speaking came up, so you're going to click on that. The next set, and here we are. So active listening, speaking. We just click on those. If you have other skills, if you're good at math, click on it. You're good at science, click on it, right? What are the things you're good at doing? These are the skill sets. These are the skills that transfer across a wide range of opportunities. It's outstanding. And then you've got the other social skills: coordination, service orientation, social perceptiveness. Are you good at persuasion? Click on it. You like negotiating things? You've been in some sales stuff? Click on it. So do this to make sure, don't just stay with the one, with whatever came up in that particular job you looked at. Think about who you are and how these things transfer. Now, there's other skills in there too you can look at. There's other technology skills. There's all kinds of stuff as you go down that list. We're going to take a moment for you to go ahead and click on that. And I want to have you in the text box say, I'm ready to hit go. So tell me when you're ready to hit go. All right? And go is going to be at the very bottom of that whole list. And that's when we open up the career opportunities. So click in there, I'm ready, when you're ready. All right. Khalil's ready. Khalil, you're carrying the team here. They are ready. Oh, great. Lindsay's ready. Harshita's ready. All right, here we go. Hit go. This is so fun. Boom. We hit go. And what comes up? Unbelievable. I'm sorry, but if you were a server and that's what you've been doing, there's 615 occupations that need those skills. Now, again, I'm not saying you're ready to walk into those occupations, because we've got to get some of the other technical skills and maybe some additional other skills, right? So we know we have some learning to do, but the idea that I've got something that has value, that's what I'm wanting you to see. You have talent right now. And it's not just based on the math class. It's not just based on language arts. Some of you have been doing scouting. You've been doing leadership. You've been doing all these things. Everything I learned to do what I'm doing right here in front of you today came from 4-H, okay? My 4-H experience taught me leadership, how to run community, how to run groups, how to feel comfortable talking in front of people, how to organize it, all of that stuff. That's where I learned all this. It wasn't in school. It was in these other learning experiences. So you've got talent, and we want to find out what that talent is. Now, the two things to think about on this page, because it's complicated. I don't know if you're looking at right now, you're looking at a whole bunch of stuff, and I'm just trying to focus your attention right here at the top. The skills, the number of skills that match, but then also job zone. And job zone is a terrible word, because that's not what they mean. What they mean is how much education is needed to move into that occupation, okay? And so if it's at a 2, you could be doing it. You can probably leave high school and jump right in. A 3, you probably need that high school degree. A 4, now we're starting to talk about a 2-year college usually. And then when you get up to 5, it's the bachelor's, and then as you keep going up, you can see it gets more advanced. So the job zone is really telling us the level of education needed, which means the level of skill sets that you need to do this, okay? Oh, I love 4-H. Thank you, Scott. I'm glad I'm not alone here, because usually, what does it mean to be a scout? I was thinking Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, things like that. So Scott, thank you. Because when I do this, a lot of times I hear chirping from the crickets. There's nobody that's been in the 4-H. So I thank you for putting that out there. It's great stuff. And yes, I had pigs, but I also learned a lot of leadership. So, and let's not talk about the pigs beyond this. It's just between us. So let me show you an example of what I mean by talent that is really amazing in terms of the world of work. So this is at the level 3. So this is that 2-year degree. And I told you I was going to be emphasizing this, because if you've got the 4-year going and you know that, that's fine. But for many of us, we're just not sure yet. And I want to show you, even if you start with the 4, you can come back into the 2-year, and they are waiting for you with some amazing opportunities. So here's an example: medical and clinical laboratory technician. Woohoo! See, I thought that was kind of celebratory. I chose. It's hard to choose. It's hard to select into something, but this is a playground. We're just playing, right? So when you look at the average salary hourly for a server, it's okay. It's good. And you're making good money. I mean, it's not bad money. But boy, it changes when you start getting a medical and clinical lab tech salary, right? 2-year degree. and all of a sudden you're in that 30 range, right? Which is about the median. You might start a little lower, but you'll also go up a little higher over time. And we talk about stackable credentials. My nephew, who's in Baltimore area now, he started with some stackable things in this area, doing more of the radiology type stuff. And it's amazing how each time he adds a new credential, he gets more money, and people keep hiring him. They just keep on. He's got new job this, new job that. So you actually become quite employable and sought after, especially in the biotechnology, health sciences. Big stuff on opportunities going on in Delaware. So that's an important thing. So now, and you're going to be playing here soon, and then we'll continue conversing and chatting as you're doing this. Now you're saying, well, where do I go to do this? How do I find out a program, right? This is under credentials. So if you go back to, if you click on the medical, or whichever one you clicked on, right? Whichever one looks fun. And this is a playground, so play, discover. So for the medical and clinical lab, when I come over to this thing called credentials, which is the next thing to click on, what it does is it gets you to training. Now click on your state of Delaware, right? So you're click on training, and then what's going to pop up is what state do you want to look at? Put it in Delaware. We don't want you leaving. I know you want to get away, but we don't want you to get away. We want you to see Delaware's where we need you, right? There's a huge number of opportunities and not enough people to fill them in Delaware. So this is a really good place for you to be. Beautiful part of the country. So yes, leave a couple miles if you need to get some space, but stay within the state, I guess is our point. So let's look at the training opportunities that's going on. And no, they don't pay me to say these things about Delaware, but I think Delaware is awesome. I'm in Massachusetts. It's awesome too. But Delaware's got it going on. So this is good. Now you click on the training, and all of a sudden you find for that medical technology, right? You find this really cool school called Delaware Technical Community College. Anyone know anything about the Delaware Technical Community College? Put it down in the chat. What do you know? Have you been there? Anyone take classes there? Great. Yep, we're gonna find the credentials in just a second, Reagan. That's exactly where we're going. We're gonna show you in just a moment. Anyone got some idea? Oh, it has the SEED program. Good. Yep. So they've got some programs to help support. It's a technical school. And it's more than technical. It's technical and community. So you can get the 2-year degree that leads right to the 4-year degree as well. So they have both things going on. Science fairs, awesome. And you can go for free. I like the word free, by the way. That sounds really good. Sounds really good. And imagine coming out with no debt after 2 years plus a degree and maybe a credential that's going to do something. You don't know nothing. Well, Khalil, we got to get you working on that. Nursing program, yep, 2-year, and then transfer to another. Exactly. This is the kind of stuff we're looking at. From a financial perspective, you're all giving some really important ideas that this is a really exciting place to start. So let's figure out how to do that. So I click on the Delaware Technical Community College, and it's not easy to find histotechnician, okay? I'm going to tell you that right now. It's not easy, okay? It's not easy. So, and I'll show you in a moment some expert advice from the 2-year college systems about how to look for these credentials. So we'll come back, in that in just a second. But I did find it, you have this programs of study is what they call it. So if you're in the Delaware Technical Community College, when you click on it, go to programs of study, and that's where you're going to see all the different certification programs that are available, as well as other programs like the Bachelor of Science or other kinds of things. So they have a whole bunch. Like I said, they've got a whole lot going on here to look at. But in this case, the associate degree program is called histotechnician. That's their fancy words for that medical piece that we were looking at. But when you're saying, but I don't know that that's what I want, I'm looking for something. Here's some of the advice that I got from some really amazing 2-year counselors that are just, they're great. One is just use that thing called Google, right? So Google it up, put in the kind of credential you're looking at and the state, community college, and you're going to start getting some program titles in some areas. Do the exploration. Just kind of begin exploring. Evaluate whether it's an associate degree, a certification, a non-credit program. Lots of options out there that you need to start just kind of looking at. But what happens is you're then going to reach out and talk with someone at the college to say, hey, I'm interested in the programs. Can you help me? And that's what they do. They help, and they will help you navigate through the process, and they might find something that's really exciting, right? So you do the application, and that gets you into the whole process. It gets you free career counseling as well, if that's what you're needing, if you're not quite sure how to decide. There'll be an orientation. Get in there, find out what's going on. That's when you really get into the things, and then get involved. You know, look at the different opportunities and services that they have, which is absolutely phenomenal. They also have a great deal of, oh good, so Delaware Tech is doing a webinar for us on Wednesday. That is outstanding. Definitely sign up. What you're learning is how higher education works. I'm not saying this is where you're going to end up. You're learning the questions you should ask. You're learning about the opportunities that you have no idea. It's sort of like a supermarket that you've never been into. And I, your counselors, your parents, can describe what it's like, but until you walk into that market, you're not going to see what's on the shelf. You're not going to see that there are aisles and aisles and aisles of things and opportunities that you never will know until you finally get there to see what's happening. So definitely start signing up for some of these great, exciting online, given that we're virtual, but online things, and follow up. It's absolutely fantastic. And then really start thinking about your planning, right? So this is where we talked about, right? What are your on-ramps? Does getting a credential sound pretty cool in terms of things? If you are looking at the 4-year, that's great. Where's it leading? What is it you want to be looking at, right? Let's make sure that there's an occupational component. Now, you have amazing skills coming out of the 2-year degree and the 4-year degree. And we just showed you that even being a server, you've got great skill sets that transfer. As you go through higher education, each level, your skill sets actually expand, and it helps you become more employable through a variety of things. So sometimes, especially at the 4-year degree level, it's more important to find something you love doing and learning about than it is something that fits specific to an occupation. Okay, let me say that first and explain that. Then I'm going to go back and I'm going to say for the STEM careers, for science and technology, for medicine, for business, it's different, right? Because there are some technical skills that go into that. But when you're a communication major, you're coming off with a liberal arts, that provides you with a range of opportunities. Your ability to problem solve, your ability to write, your ability to communicate in multimedia, your ability to investigate in multiple ways, right? Your ability to work with people, that we just said is a huge thing, compassion and empathy. Maybe you've had some leadership opportunities. Those skills are the core skills that they're looking for in the world of work, because even in those STEM jobs, they're looking for people who can help make the system work. You don't have to be an expert in all the complexities, because you're an expert in people, you're an expert in investigation and communication, right? Those are such important skills, and they're asking for, they're begging for them all over Delaware. So we really want to be thinking about that. So as a sophomore, how do we make a career plan for college? Lindsay, I'm so glad you're on here, because you're at a perfect timing, right? The first thing is we think about what is our mission in life, right? You see a lot going on around you. We got a global economic collapse going on. We've got healthcare crises. We got global warming. We've got the COVID. We got all this stuff going on. What do you want to do about it? What do you want to do? Oh, Scott, I'm so glad. What do you want to do about that? That's what you have to start asking yourself. And there are some ways, and we can certainly talk with the State Department about coming back in and really focusing on that mission, right, of what that's about. Because the United Nations, I'll put that right in here, the UN Sustainable, have you guys heard about this? Sustainable Development Goals. Have you guys heard about this? If you have, let me know. Yes, thank you, Lindsay. Phenomenal. These are the core issues going on around our global needs, right? So when you're a sophomore, I want you to start there and find out where you want to make a difference in this world, right? That's the first part. Then we start exploring all the different ways we can do that. And that's how the pathway starts. We start with a goal, kind of a mission. It's about being the future ready. Future readiness starts with having a purpose, having a belief about what I want to change in this world. Then you start investigating the different ways in which you can make that change, right? And there are lots of ways. And so then as you start to investigate that, it starts to evolve. And then you go out and you get some work-based learning, you know, like maybe a job shadow or an internship, maybe some early college. And it's continuing to build this sense of identity that you have and a sense of confidence of, hey, I'm going to continue doing this. So this is where it starts and what we want you to do with that. And then, you know, you talk to people, you build up ideas. You don't ever listen to bad advice. You don't ever, when people say, oh, you can't, don't listen. be a terrible listener when someone says you can't do it. There's so much you can do. Early college from high school, great, Lindsay. That is an awesome way to get started, because you're building a success identity. You're recognizing, you know what, I can do this. I have the skills to do this work. And now it's a question of moving through and really deciding that direction, and allow the direction to evolve, right? There's a guy up here a long time ago. His name was Henry David Thoreau, which some of you know the name of, right? In Emerson. But Henry David Thoreau said, you know, wouldn't it be great if we could just live in the present always and take advantage of any accident that befalls us? And his point is, part of building your pathway is being open to new opportunities. It's about being open to the kinds of things going on around you and having the skills, right? So you can pivot and lean into these great, exciting areas. Focusing on the trades. So when we talk about trades, we're talking about certification. So same thing, Lisa, you are right on target. So when we talk about trade, we talk about career and technical education. That's also code that leads towards these certifications. But these certifications, robotic engineers is a type of certification. You can find that. There are huge opportunities, and the range when we talk about this is much wider than you ever would have realized. And again, that's why it's exciting to begin exploring, begin discovering, and not to hold yourself up with a small view. You know, really focus on the purpose you want to have and where you want to go with things. Now, that was awesome, right? We just went through, I don't mean to go back there. We just went through my part of the presentation. I want to keep responding to your questions, and we have plenty of time to do that, and that was the goal. So you've got the own it, you've got the idea that you use the skills. We're not talking about doing a long assessment and it coming up with things. We want you to figure out your talent and then drive that. And then maybe there's some talent that, boy, if I learned a little bit more about coding, what would happen if I learned a little bit more about some of the science, biology? How does that expand my opportunities? These are the kinds of questions I'm wanting you to start asking yourself, because I think these will be a way for you to really see that you're going to continue building your talent through your lifespan, and it can start right now. It can start right now. So throw in some questions and some things that we had there. Team, is there some that I've missed as we've been going through here? Oh my gosh, finding an engineering job while you're in 11th grade, like immediately. All right, so we call it internships, right? And there are engineering companies that are begging. They call it their talent pipeline, and they want to invest in their talent pipeline, Joshua. They're gonna want to talk with you and see what you've got. And if you've got those of you that like Minecraft, by the way, any Minecraft people, throw me some yeses if you like Minecraft. Because if you do, okay, thank you. Because if you like Minecraft, you have an engineering imagination. Because what you're doing in Minecraft is all of those core engineering skills. And when I put the skill sets that you've got for Minecraft in, it's amazing the different occupations that those skills transfer into. So definitely use your gaming, use your idea of the things you're doing as a way of doing that. So great. So Karen has a great answer. Karen, you want to come off and just kind of elaborate on that a little bit? Come off mute.
Yes, I was just answering the question about college classes.
Mm-hmm.
And saying that dual enrollment, many schools have dual enrollment classes. So that means you're taking college classes in high school. So it might be a Dell Tech class. It could be a Wilmington University class. You know, there's different options, and different schools have different partnerships with our Delaware colleges and universities. So I would suggest that you ask your school counselor about that and see what the opportunities are in your school.
Absolutely. So two things we're getting out here. One, there are businesses who would love to give you a practical experience, an internship, some kind of job shadowing. So if you're interested in engineering and a type of it, we need to find out where you can get that real experience. That's awesome. And two, early college. Getting in there early, taking some courses that are going to count towards college and also count towards high school. You know, that's the cool thing. It's a dual enrollment, so you're getting both. And it helps you also explore things. So you want to be a lawyer, but they're not in high demand. So the question you have to ask yourself is, you want to be a lawyer to do what, Patricia? What's the change you want to make in this world? And then it doesn't matter whether they're in high demand, because you're doing it for a purpose, right? And that's the big key thing. There are places in our world that need better lawyers focused on those areas, right? So don't let it go. Forensic technician for crime scenes. I know, but I kind of tell you, Emily, those skill sets, amazing, right? You're investigating, you're problem solving. Those kinds of skills will also help you transfer into a whole bunch of things. So definitely go for it and really start looking into that, but be open, learn, right? Learn what are the other occupations that align to those same skills. So that way you've got backup plans and other potential possibilities that may be awesome, right? So finding internships in college for computer science, you know, we're going to lean on your, we're definitely going to lean on, if you have your career tech ed group in there, your school counselor, you got to get in there and say, hey, I'm looking for this, and see if they can help you. And then you can also reach out as you're looking at the 2-year college to say, hey, I'm interested in this. Are there any kinds of opportunities for work-based type things that might be there? And if anyone from the State Department has ideas on that, that would be great to fill in.
And I offer just another resource.
Mhm.
So schools use different, have different technology options for their
Yeah.
students. Some schools use a platform called Major Clarity, and that's a great tool that helps you explore careers in a different way than Dr. Solberg showed us today. Or
Mhm.
some schools use Naviance, or there's Big Future with the College Board. So you have to, you know, if you don't know what your school offers, that's another question to check with your school counselor and say, what tools do we have to help me explore different careers?
Yeah.
Because there are ways to do that.
Mhm. Yeah, so Patricia, what you're describing right there, the ability that you've got people in our society that aren't able to stand up for themselves, lawyer is one way to do that. And there are others, right? There's other ways you can do that as well. So definitely don't lose being a lawyer, and that'll be the graduate program. So once you get your 4-year degree, but also start looking at other ways, other things you can do that can also help people, because I feel like I'm doing exactly that I'm trying to work, especially with youth that are coming in, have never known about these opportunities. Their families haven't had the income levels that they deserve. They have tremendous talent, but they're not sure what to do with it. And that's how I spend my time, as a way of trying to help those that don't otherwise have that opportunity to learn about that. So there's many ways we can have an impact on doing that. I like Isabella, starting off simple. That's great. And thinking about building. That's what it's sort of, you know, think about something that's going to get you decent and good paying work, right? That's a great place to start as well. But think of it as building your portfolio of talent. And so start with something you can certainly come up with more. Yeah, Scott, unfortunately, we're not able to unmute, but if you throw in the questions, we'll go for it. Yeah, Karen said the same thing.
To another one of the questions that was asked about taking college classes outside of school. I was checking on that while you were talking. Delaware State University has early bird courses that you can take on your own, and also Goldie Beacom and the University of Delaware also offer dual enrollment courses that you can take on your own. And if I can get a link, I'll put it in the chat, but that's again something you can ask at school.
Outstanding, outstanding. Some other questions or comments that you guys have? So let me give you the whole kind of career pathway, right? How do I find myself? It starts with self-awareness, right? What are your skills? What's your talent? And I'm not talking about what courses are you good at. That's certainly important, but that's not the whole story. You're so much more talented than the academic part of you, right? You excel in sports, you excel in leadership, you excel on computers. Oh my gosh, the things you can do on a computer, amazing. We've already talked about gaming. Find out what the skills are that make you who you are, right? And then we begin to think about, where in the world do I want to have a difference, right? What's my mission? What's my big thought about the world and where I want to be positioning myself? Then we start exploring different pathways, and we call that career exploration, but basically it's what we started to do today. Let's look at the multitude of opportunities that are out there and begin to explore and learn about them. Let's really figure out, well, what is that whole thing about a medical technologist, things like that. Then we start to have a tentative plan, and then it shifts over to what we call career management. Do you have the deeper human skills you need to pursue it, right? Some of us are dealing with, we got a little anger issues, maybe, I don't like talking to people so much, but I know I need to. Public speaking. What are the skill sets you need to really start leaning into, because it's going to help you be successful, and you've got something you want to be successful at. We need financial literacy. We've got to make good choices. We do not want to leave. We don't want to start our 20s in so much debt that we're in debt for the rest of our life. So we've got to be very strategic in terms of what, it's fine to go into debt when we know that the economic potential for the jobs you're going to have are going to pay that off. That's the big issue. It's not about having debt. It's about making sure I'm going to be able to have a job that's going to be able to pay off that debt. And if I'm not so sure, then let's be very careful, right? And that's the career management as well. And then when it's time to really think through for that 2-year, 4-year, we can really make a really good decision based on what makes sense for our own skills, our readiness, and the economics, right? That becomes a big piece as you go through. Other thoughts and things as we're going. Tilly, is there some things coming up there that we need to, I see you throwing some things down.
I think, you know, your point, most people that we kind of see in terms of looking at their options after high school, they sort of, you know, think they need to pick the college or they need to pick the pool first.
Yeah, right.
I think it is really important for those on the call, the students and parents, to think, you know, it's more about where are you trying to go, even though we're not saying you have to decide for the rest of your life what is the one thing you want to be. That is not happening anymore.
Nope.
You know, you have to make your best guess and start somewhere, and you can always adjust as you go along, but you're having more of a career target in mind, and then you decide what is the education and the right path to get there. So the question about the trades, you know, if that's an area, if you like to do that work and you want to, you know, be a tile setter. My parents had a tile and marble company my whole entire life, so I grew up in the trades. If that's an area that you are interested in, then that's what you pursue, you know. So it's not finding the pretty campus somewhere, because getting on the pretty campus isn't going to necessarily secure you a job. Really seeing how we've been talking about your next steps. And I think this is really important information.
Yeah, no, thanks, Lisa, for your comments too about this is applicable for throughout the lifespan. I mean, we start in middle school with this conversation and we're talking to people in their 90s as they're saying, hey, I'm not done yet. I want to do something more with my life. Absolutely. It's the same process. Absolutely the same process. There was something I wanted to come back to. Okay, because I see that we've got some direct answers, which is great. I want to come back to something I saw up here. If I can find it. Oh, someone was asking about being a sophomore and can I get robotic engineers, you know, courses in college. So Scott, I want to just say, and this is for everyone, I'm going to put it in right here. Anyone know what MOOCs are? Anyone know what MOOC is, what it stands for? Boy, I stumped the team. Okay, here we go, gang. I'm putting it in right now. This is so cool. Massively open online courses from colleges all over the world on every topic you could ever imagine. Okay, the platform I want you to go to, because of course I'm at Boston University and we are very proud of working with Harvard and MIT on this. It's an edX platform. And when you go into that edX platform, you're trying to do an AP, you want to get prepared for that AP course, there may be a free open access course for that particular area in AP. There will definitely be some things on computer science and math, right? So there are ways to get college credit for that. I mean, there's ways you can pay a little bit and some of it can transfer, but that's not why you're doing it. You're doing it to get really good, right? You're doing it because you want the skills. It's not just the credit. So do not let whether as a sophomore I can get in or not. If you're motivated, go for it. Look at these MOOCs and go for it. Oh, I see Harshita got it. Nice work. Excellent. So definitely do not let that stop you. The reason why I'm so excited about the MOOCs is because you will be in schools that aren't going to be teaching you the computer level skills you need, right? You have to learn Python or you have to learn all of these different languages. There are places for you to get that free access. Khan Academy is going to get you really far on a lot of these skill sets as well. So the idea is continue focusing on where you can get access to the kind of knowledge that you need and do it for learning and advancing the skill sets that you're trying to learn. Yes, some of that will be college credit, some of it will be in high schools, but more importantly, it's the talent that you're brewing, right? That you're bringing together. Outstanding. Karen, how are we doing there? I see we're about 6 minutes left.
Yes, we're good. I think if there are any last questions, stick them in the chat now so we can address.
Yep.
And this isn't something that you can learn all in one night. So this is a
Mhm.
really good start, and the ONET site is something that you guys can investigate and, click around.
Yeah, the reason why we went with ONET and we talked as a state about that is that as you look at Major Clarity and Naviance and some of these other systems, they want you to do a very specific interest assessment. But the interest, they skip over the who are you and all of that and go directly to occupations. We want you to kind of know who you are and what's developing about you, and then for you to become aware of how that transfers into a wider range, not a shorter, not a smaller subset, but just opening up tremendous possibilities. And so we showed you just one element within that ONET system, which is really exciting. And you can certainly look at other ways to explore. But yes, once you've done this and you've got this going, by going to a Major Clarity system, as an example, they're going to have a portfolio so you can store the ideas. You're exciting. I was really excited about this occupation or this particular 2-year, 4-year, whatever post-secondary pathway, and it will store that information so you don't lose it. And unfortunately for ONET, it doesn't have that capability, which is a problem for us. But it has huge amounts of opportunity for just having fun and making it a playground. All right, anything else as we get ready here? Well, thank you, Lindsay, I appreciate it. This was so much fun. I've been looking forward to this, honestly, for a while now, to be able to talk with you all, because this is really exciting. We get to talk with school counselors, we get to talk with educators. I love talking with parents and talking with students to get the message, the same message we're giving them, for you guys to have, because we want this to be student driven and family engaged as we go through it. And your state in Delaware is on this and really excited. Yes, I think I did, Tilly. Thank you. edX does not have an extra E in it, does it? Thank you. You're right. It's ed and then an X. So that's perfect. Thanks, Tilly. Excellent. So, so again, thank you. Your state is doing some remarkable work in this area, and they're really at the cutting edge to really help you design, and parents really helping you be a part of that design, so that our students are entering post-secondary and also leaning into their high school education in different ways, right? It's about in and out of school learning. It's not just what we're getting in the classroom. And the ability to recognize parents that when they're gaming, they're building skills. Don't forget that. You can quote me on that. Don't say, oh, it's your fault that they're gaming all the time, but definitely recognize that they're building transferable skills that are amazing as they go through that. So Karen, I think we're probably there. I'm not seeing much more on the chat box.
One last tip I'll give to
Yeah.
students is, as you're exploring careers and as you're thinking about things, talk to people about it, because you will be amazed at, when you say, here's a career that you may not know. My son is a financial engineer. So whoever heard of that? He went through the School of Engineering and he works in the world of finance, but he's a financial engineer. So that was a new one for me. But, talk to people and they will connect you with people who do the things you might be interested in. And the more people you talk to and say, I was thinking about this, or I'm interested in that, you'll be amazed at the opportunities that will pop up in front of you. So that's just a little tip.
Awesome.
Go ahead.
No, that's awesome. That's great. Exactly.
I would like to thank Dr. Solberg for taking the time to talk to our Delaware students and parents. The information was really helpful. You'll see a slide on the screen. If you have any questions or need information, you're welcome to email us at the Higher Education Office. I would urge you to use the DelawareStudentSuccess.org website. There's tons of information on there, especially the calendar with all of these webinars coming up. And again, if you want to join our texting program, we'll be in touch directly. You can ask us questions and we'll feed you information that might be helpful. So thank you everyone for your time and for joining us tonight. And we look forward to seeing you on another one of these webinars. So thank you.
Awesome. Great. Thank you, everyone. This was very fun. Thank you.
Bye, everyone.